Hello and welcome to the Oakland County Megacast. I'm Tyler Keefe in the studios of our flagship stations, 89.3 Lakes FM and Civic Center TV. In addition today, as always, we're on the radio, 89.3 Lakes FM, 88.1 WBFH, The Biff. On TV, both of our channels, Comcast, Channel 15, and AT&T, Channel 99. Birmingham Area Municipal Access in Birmingham, Bingham Farms, Beverly Hills, and the village of Franklin, as well as Civic Center TV in Greater West Bloomfield. And online, civiccentertv.com. Click on our Watch Live link or view it on our small player on the home page, as well as on our Facebook pages, facebook.com/civiccentertv15 and facebook.com/lakesfm. And as always, joining me here in the studio is Ronnie Dahl.
Tyler, how was your weekend?
My weekend was very busy, very productive, but we got a lot done. We had a graduation Friday afternoon for Oakland Early College, and we did that on a pretty short notice. It was the first time we've ever done that graduation. We're going to have that all edited together and out there for the public viewing sometime early on this week. And then on Sunday we did both graduation sessions for West Bloomfield High School out on the football field, and that was a very long, very hot day out there. We did bring a canopy tent over us, which certainly helped, but a couple of great sessions that were actually pretty quick considering the size of that class.
So with that, because they were allowed to have some family members in the audience, right?
Yeah, I think they were allowed to have up to 3 family members.
Did they sit out in the stands?
They were out in the stands. The stands were packed for both sessions, so I'm sure some families maybe brought more than 3 and got through, and they were a little bit generous with their space. Of course, not everybody did show up, especially for the second session. It was significantly smaller than the first one, but packed stands both times. Very enthusiastic audience, and it was really nice to see the families back out there, the students back out there. I think everybody enjoyed just being in that presence and being in that environment for a graduation, and being able and really had a renewed appreciation for that rite of passage in their kids' lives, as classes last year were not able to do that. I think that makes it that much more special for this class, knowing what the class that came before them had lost.
Yeah, and not only that, I mean, there were a lot of schools they didn't have the in-person graduation, especially the ones that were happening in April and May. A lot of the colleges have their ceremonies a little bit early, but I'm just thinking that it was hot over the weekend.
Yeah, it was very hot. I'm significantly more red than I normally am. So there you go, especially after that first ceremony at bright and early, 10 a.m. yesterday. The sun, as we got through the day, gradually getting a little bit higher up on us throughout that ceremony, and just shining directly in our faces as we were facing the main part of the field with the WB logo there at West Bloomfield. So direct sunlight, not a cloud in the sky. It was an absolutely beautiful day, other than it being hot and a little bit muggy. Really nice day, very sunny and bright out there, and so it was a really nice Sunday afternoon for those families.
I'm thinking back, one time I had to cover an event. I think Michelle Obama was here speaking. Wayne State University on their football field, maybe in those metal stands, and it was so hot. Mm-hmm. And it went on for hours, and you would just see people dropping. There'd go another one, because they were fainting. It was so hot with the sun beating down, and you're sitting in metal stands. Did not make for a let's just say a comfortable time out in the sun. We were like you, though. We were lucky, being media, that we were under a canopy.
Yeah, that made for a very much nicer environment, being in just a little bit of shade. You still have the heat out there. You still have the mugginess of the day, but having that shade there versus the beaming sun reflecting off of the very bright field, I can't imagine what it was like out there in those 2 sessions for especially the administration that were out there in black robes with a black cap on, sitting directly in the sun, absorbing all of that heat, just direct sunlight on them. The first ceremony, it's right in their back. The second ceremony, it's directly over their head, and oh man, I feel for them. A
lot of interesting farmer tans today then.
I'm sure we're all gonna I'm sure a lot of people are gonna be having a lot of very interesting farmers tans after yesterday. Everyone's gonna have a tan below the knees.
It was crazy out on Cass Lake over the weekend. I'm sure Sylvan Lake was just as busy as well. So many people out enjoying the weather, because they're saying this weekend it may only be in the 70s.
Oh man, it's getting cool out there.
So when
put a
you
park
get
on.
these, 90-degree days for people with boats, they're like, oh, we're going out on the water. I went out yesterday, of course, with my raft.
Yes.
But when you go out there with the Cass Lake Sandbar, you see so many people that you know. So
Of course.
I don't need a boat.
No, you just, you float right up to them, and you got I mean, you stick out like a sore thumb. You got it with Flo out there, a big pink flamingo on Cass Lake.
Oh, Flo died.
Oh, no.
I know.
Oh.
So my birthday's coming up this month, and so let's just say I made it known to my husband that I need a new Flo.
Yeah. Oh, man. That is a very bad. That's a very sad story to hear on a Monday morning.
I know.
Oh,
it's my favorite raft. So we go, I'm like, well, I need a raft now.
Right.
And so only I would have a box full of rafts. So I have the big 9-person and the 6-person.
Okay.
But then I have another box of just 1-person rafts.
Yeah, it's the party raft and the leave me to enjoy the lake myself raft. Yes.
I know, but I rode my bike over. So I had to actually blow it up the old-fashioned way.
Okay.
Not so fun. I ended up
No.
giving the raft to my neighbor. They had their little kids out there. I was like, "Hey, if you take that raft home, you guys can have it."
Yeah. Leave this to you this time. You blow it up now. I'm done.
Right,
I've
I
had
know.
my fun for the day.
Well, because otherwise, to try to deflate a raft.
Oh yeah, it's even worse than blowing it up.
Yeah, I mean, it's not bad if I have my car, and you can
Right.
stuff it in there half deflated. But when you're on a bicycle.
No, yeah, you're already winded just from trying to inflate the raft. Then you're trying to deflate the raft, and it's not going. So you're trying to speed it up. Then you're just rolling around like a darn fool, trying to get the rest of the air out of it. Whereas if you have your car, you can just shove it in the back halfway through and be like, okay, fine, leave it to deflate a little bit more as the cool air from inside goes into the heat of the outside a little bit, and then I'll take care of the rest of this at home when I'm alone, and no one else can be here to see me rolling around on this thing like a fool, trying to get the air out of it.
Right, and you do.
Right.
It's
Get self-conscious.
It's exactly how you look, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
So, but no, it's a great time right now. In Michigan, it's all about the summer. It really is all about the summer, and we're so lucky because we do have so many lakes right here in this area.
Yeah, there's so much to do. There's so many different activities that you can have here in Michigan over the summer. It is such a culturally, it just has so many different subcultures that you can recreate in throughout the summer, whether it be boating or whether it be other activities that are outside because it is so warm. And having all those lakes as well, everybody can kind of enjoy it peacefully without having to be too overcrowded, although some places do like to pack up their crowds on days when they're having a lot of fun, especially now as we're coming out of COVID.
I went to the farmer's market on Saturday morning, got up super, super early. I think I was there before 7. So they were still setting up because one thing I've been finding right now at the farmer's market, when it comes to the plants, if you don't get there early, you're not getting the best ones. And it just seems like they're not as full this year as they have been in years past.
That's interesting. I'd be curious why that wouldn't be the case. Either it's just that they've had some crops be lost because of a lack of activity at some of these markets, and they've had to ditch some of them along the way, or maybe it's because people are just so eager to get them and at other markets that they have a more limited supply when they go to markets later on in the week. Who knows?
Well, I know last year it was a big problem here in the state of Michigan because we opened up so late, where Ohio opened up earlier.
Yeah.
So Ohio was a lot of the farmers or, the markets, they were coming here to the state of Michigan and taking them across the border. So I don't know if that's a similar situation this year as well. They just don't seem as big and pretty. But but I did find some things, and there was a lilac bush.
Okay.
And I was like, I've been smelling them in the neighborhood. So I'm like, I need to get a lilac bush. And this farmer over at the Oakland County Market, he had like one left.
Oh.
I'm like, no, it's coming home with me. My
course.
problem is, of course, I had Bubbles, the smart car.
Yes.
So to fit the lilac tree, the flowers, the hanging baskets, and then mint, I got a bunch of herbs, and I have this great mint basket, and has all. Did you know there was orange mint?
I have not heard of that. No, now I do.
I didn't know either. So it has all these different types of mint in it, like
Okay.
spearmint and chocolate mint and orange mint and strawberry mint.
Huh.
And but I had to fit it all in because I was like, it's coming home with me.
Of course.
I could barely drive.
I'm just imagining, and this is just my own weird imagination, just a couple of poles going across, lying out the windows, resting on the back windows of bubbles, and then just having hanging plants on the side, kind of like those sports fans that put those stupid flags on their back windows and make them look like the presidential motorcade for the Red Wings or some crap like that.
Yeah, so it was interesting, but it all made it home. My husband planted them for me, so that was nice.
Very nice.
So, hey, it was a full weekend.
Yes, full weekend for everybody.
And now we start the work week.
That's all right. Back to a 5-day work week. Maybe this week we'll be able to keep better track of the days, considering it's a regular full work week.
Yeah.
We'll see what happens.
Well, you know what? Just a reminder for everyone, if you're going downtown this week, keep in mind parking may not be as easy as it has been because so many of the businesses are starting to bring their employees back to the office in downtown Detroit. So with the COVID-19 curve losing altitude and safe regulations are easing, downtown businesses preparing to get at least some folks back into the office, at least part of the week. Rocket companies, I didn't know they have like 19,000 employees in downtown.
That's interesting. I knew they were a large company. Didn't quite think 19,000 specifically downtown because they're all over the place here in Michigan and really in the region.
Yeah, it was a big deal when they moved their headquarters from, I think, was it Livonia? Somewhere out here in the suburbs to downtown. Well, they're going to be bringing their employees back. Some of the employees starting with the first wave today. Blue Cross Blue Shield plans to begin a phased return starting mid-July. DTE Energy, they have a beautiful campus there in downtown. They are going to be waiting until October, though, to bring back employees. So like many others, including the Detroit 3 automakers, Rocket and DTE will stick with the hybrid work model.
Yeah, I think that's what we're going to see in a lot of cases is this hybrid work model coming back as the predominant way of doing business, at least for the foreseeable future as we're coming out of this pandemic, and businesses really do determine how they're going to run their offices, their physical offices going forward, because we have seen in many cases productivity has been higher and people in the employee morale has been higher having worked from home and being able to work remotely and not having to commute to the office. And a lot of these businesses too like having the situation where they can potentially do some cost savings and close some of their offices or downsize to a different office in the same city or general area. So I think as we're coming out of this pandemic slowly and things are starting to reopen and businesses are starting to trend back to a more normal operation, we'll at least see hybrid continue in some capacity in most cases.
Yeah, so the return of business to downtown offices not expected to cause a stampede of workers back to the office. Instead, companies, industry representatives, and experts predict a slow attempt to return to normal that aligns with the state of vaccination and the government's pullback on the pandemic restrictions. Kind of bad news, though, for so many of these businesses that have been waiting and hanging on, hoping for some of these offices to, reopen because their business relies on having people around them.
Yeah, it does. And we've spoken to a number of different business organizations, whether it be chambers of commerce, whether it be the Small Business Association of Michigan. We do have Brian Calley, the president of that organization, on today's program that have said that, and especially when we've spoken to the mayor of the city of Troy, Ethan Baker, who said numerous times on each of his appearances that a lot of those businesses that are surrounding these office environments, whether it be shops, whether it be restaurants, whether it be malls, whatever the case may be, they're heavily impacted by not having that daily foot traffic or road traffic of people coming in to commute to work that do go in and shop after work or do go grab a drink after 5 o'clock when they're done for the day and take a load off with some of their workmates. That is a big impact, and I think that's going to be a big impact as we continue to see hybrid work kind of remodel into how offices operate post-pandemic.
I really wonder about some of these parking garages and parking lots.
Yeah, those too.
In downtown Detroit. What's it been like for so many of them?
Yeah, and especially with all these events not happening down there during the pandemic too, they've certainly taken a significant impact. And as those events come back, is a big benefit to them. But if those events alone, especially considering that we're not seeing extra basketball, extra baseball, extra football, we rarely ever see down there because these teams aren't making the playoffs. When those go away and you're relying solely on office work, and normally that would be the lion's share, no pun intended, of the business that you would be getting down there for those parking garages on a daily and a weekly basis. If those aren't coming back in full force, or even if they're coming back in less than partial force, that's going to have a huge impact on these garages.
Yeah, a lot of people, if you don't work downtown, you may not realize that that's an expense each employee typically has to pay. I know when I was with ATF, our lease was coming up. We were at the Cranes Communications building, and it really was trying to find a location with parking.
Right.
Because parking is so expensive, especially, over the past couple years as more and more businesses have been coming into that downtown area.
Yeah, I've only been downtown for work purposes a few times in my employment with Motown Digital, not in the last couple of years due to the pandemic, and just no reason for me to be down there before then, 2019, very much. And yeah, parking is a huge part of working downtown, especially downtown in the city of Detroit. And if you're not able to find a parking space, if you're not regularly there, and you have some sort of thing worked out where you're going to one parking garage versus another regularly, you may be having to go a few blocks. But things may be even more competitive if there's not a lot of these people returning to work, and maybe that's going to be good for some of these employees that do go back, being able to have a greater selection, maybe a cheaper selection for them. But at the same time, while that is a benefit, the drawback in that scenario is these businesses that make a living on people coming to the city and needing to park. If they're not having as many people down there, some of these are going to be in some big trouble.
So according to the CDC, COVID-19 is still a very big severe risk for unvaccinated teens. So while most coronavirus hospitalizations occur in adults, the virus still poses the threat of severe disease to teens. Again, according to the CDC, nearly a third of teens ages 12 to 17 hospitalized with COVID-19 ended up in the intensive care unit, 5% being placed on ventilators. Most of the teens who were hospitalized with COVID, about 70%, did have at least one underlying medical condition, while 30% of the teens with no underlying medical conditions were still hospitalized. None of the adolescents in the study, though, died from COVID-19. The CDC is encouraging vaccination, of course, among those ages 12 to 17, and they are referencing the study to make a case that complications of the virus are much more serious than the risk of getting vaccinated. CDC reporting that more than 500,000 children ages 12 to 15 received a COVID-19 vaccine. Complications were extremely rare. Important to note as we go into the summer months and then eventually into fall. I think that's going to be a big part of the conversation to get schools back open.
Oh, it definitely is, and especially if these schools are aiming to get back full-time in person 5 days a week and not continue what many are doing right now, which is some sort of a hybrid method where you spend most of your week in person, but maybe on shorter days and in 1 or 2 days per week being distance learning. If there are continuing to be severe risks being shown to teens regarding COVID-19, and we're not at or above that 70% threshold that's being aimed at nationally and definitely statewide in terms of COVID-19 vaccinations, there's going to be a huge impact on how schools plan for the fall of 2021, coming back hopefully normally based on how kids are getting vaccinated in that 12 to 17 range where they're currently able to do so with the Pfizer vaccine.
Speaking of vaccination, the rate of vaccinations around the country has sunk to new lows in recent weeks, threatening President Biden's goal of 70% of American adults with at least one dose by the 4th of July. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention reported on July 3rd that 63% of adults had received their first dose of COVID-19 vaccine, only slightly up from the 62% the week before. The low-hanging fruit, those people who absolutely wanted to get vaccinated without you telling them anything, have already been vaccinated, which has led to the slowdown. That's according to Anthony Fauci, of course, the government's top infectious disease expert. The White House has already made plans to combat the slowdown. They have announced a month-long effort here in June to encourage more Americans to roll up their sleeves and get vaccinated.
Yeah, this slowdown has continued to go at a more increased rate. It's really gone from being a rush to get vaccinated to a moderate line to a slow trickle, and now it's even slower than that slow trickle before, as we have been really stagnating at these numbers. As this article reports, a 1% increase really in that first dose vaccination percentage over the course of 1 week. That's going to take that would take well beyond half a year, almost an entire year, if we go at that rate continuing, before we would get to 70%, very, very far beyond that July 4th goal that the president had set. It'll be interesting to see exactly what their plan is to encourage more people to get vaccinated and try to get this slowdown to get back into some form that's moving this needle forward quickly, no pun intended again there. But I don't see how it's going to happen. I just think there's not interest there. The incentives are not enough to get people to really want to flock to get their vaccines, and at least not at a rate that will get us to 70%. So I think other options, if there are there, need to start being explored about what life looks like if we don't get to that 70% threshold, because that seems to be the reality at this point in time.
And as always, you can always go ahead and catch the latest headlines. Go to civiccentertv.com, click on coronavirus. Also at the top of the page, direct links to valuable resources, including the CDC. Keep up on all of the news coming out of the federal government or the state of Michigan and Oakland County as well. We'll take a quick break here on the Megacast. When we come back, we have a good lineup for you on this Monday. Right after the break, we'll be speaking with a teacher here locally who was just recognized for his work. That right after the break on the Megacast.
Jen, why'd you get vaccinated?
I'd like to go to these school dances and spring break to have fun.
I want to be in person for college next semester.
I want to get out of this pandemic.
I wanted to protect the people around me.
Why did you get vaccinated?
Because I'm really looking forward to hanging out with my friends.
I just want to go to a show, dance around, not have to worry about anything, feel like I'm free again.
So we can not miss out on the best years of our life.
People are getting out to walk and bike in higher numbers. More vulnerable road users and higher speed traffic can be a dangerous combination. Crash severity has increased, so if you're driving, be sure to slow down and look for people. There's no need to speed. If you're biking, ride with traffic. If you're walking, avoid stepping into the road if possible. If you have to walk in the street, walk facing traffic. Learn more at walkbikedrivesafe.org.
Great to have you with us on the Megacast. Tyler's looking at me. So I put mint in my drink this morning.
Orange mint?
No, I think it was just the regular mint.
Okay.
But when I went to take a drink, it got stuck in the straw, like on the bottom. I'm like, what is going on here? And then I got little pieces, I don't know, of mint. I did wash it before I put it in, so.
Huh. Interesting.
It makes your water taste so much better.
Yeah, and I would think that the mint showing up in your straw like that is not something you expect. You're like, okay, I'm just gonna get the liquid, and you get mint. You're like, well, what is that? So yeah, I'm not surprised now that I know the context. It's just like, oh no, what's going on? Are you choking there? Do I need to take over here while you cough that out? Oh no.
Tyler was looking at me like, oh, what's going on? Hey, you know what, Tyler? You know how we definitely know we're on the backside of this pandemic?
How?
Our PSAs.
Yes. Yeah, they're less COVID-19 related now. We're getting back to normal. It's been tough for me to find more COVID-related ones that aren't exactly the same as one another. So that's telling me that's a good sign over here, Ronnie.
Look at that. See? It's been quite the year and a half, but we are starting to emerge out of the backside of it. But really a tough year for so many of our educators. And I wonder what it's been like for our next guest, because there are some classes that you can teach online. Others are a little bit harder. With us, we want to bring in Mike Conrad. He is a teacher over at Royal Oak High School, but you also teach video production. What's it been like for you in the middle of the pandemic?
Well, not as bad as having mint stuck to the bottom of my cup, I can tell you that. So
it's a struggle. The struggle is real, Mike. It's real.
Hashtag first world problems, right?
Exactly. Monday problems.
Yeah. Boy, what's it been like? I don't even know a quick way to answer that one. The school year started off, we were all virtual. And I had to try to figure out, and I don't want to use the word pivot because I think that word is number one overused, and also don't think it applies. It was more of a restructuring. And we had to try to figure out how to teach a technologically based class of a TV studio with students at home. And that was hard. About halfway through the school year, we started to get some kids back into the building. And for the last, since March, I've been teaching to students here with me at the computers in the studio in the classroom, and kids here at home through, we use WebEx at the same time. And that was a pretty big struggle because you never know who's going to be in your classroom from day to day. You get one positive case in the building, and every student around that student who's tested positive is now quarantined for 2 weeks. So there was always a fluctuation of who's going to be in the classroom, but the kids were pretty great about showing up online. They were pretty great about communicating what was going on, but it has been a struggle.
With that, Mike, too, I think what makes your class so unique is because we're talking about technology, and the technology students have at home can be so different to what they have there in the classroom, and you're trying to teach it with those limitations, because even though I have a Mac, my Mac right now is pretty much reached its capacity, so it's constantly crashing, so how's that been to try to navigate that world?
You know what, I thought it was going to be harder. I've got really great equipment here, and I've got, nice cameras that we use in the classroom and a whole TV studio. And then next thing you know, the entire class was phones.
Right.
So everything shot at home was phones. A great editing software program emerged with some great popularity called WeVideo, which allowed for collaborative video editing. So I could have a project open and I could be editing on it along with 5 kids who are at their home editing the same project at the same exact time. There were some great things that kind of reared their heads and said, hey, we're going to help you out with this. And that was great. But the hardest part, I think, the biggest struggle is kind of like what you were talking about, managing your Mac and imagining being an IT person, a presenter, a manager of Zoom calls, a teacher of online, a teacher of in-person, and doing technical troubleshooting all at the same time.
And I'm sure you didn't get extra pay for all of that.
Oh, no. Oh, God, no.
It's been quite the year, I will say, as well. My brother-in-law teaches math on the high school level in Macomb County. And it's, it's like you said, trying to teach to some in-person, others virtual, and having to address everyone the same and trying to see that the kids are also keeping up can be a challenge, even when they're in the classroom in front of you.
Yeah, I think student engagement has been the biggest problem. I would have thought that technological issues or getting technology. I gave kids cameras. They came to pick them up at the building. I sent computers home. I sent home microphones and green screens, and anything that they needed, I would get to them. But the student engagement was the hardest part. And boy, if someone finds that magic wand, I'd be happy to pick it up. But that has been the big struggle.
So if we can talk, how are some of their projects? Have they been creative, though?
I've been blown away by the projects. Some of the projects that were just produced at home on a phone, so creative, so witty, so funny. Great shot composition. There's always things that can be fixed, but if you consider that these kids have been sitting in their bedrooms or in their, workspaces for weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks, and then given the opportunity to do something fun and creative, some of them knocked it out of the park. I had a student who produced an entire short film at her home during our quarantine time called Thread. and that it won an award as a Best of Show recipient in the DAFT Michigan Student Film Festival this year. So I was incredibly proud of that work. It's been great to see the kids rise up and know that, okay, this is a little bit different. We can have some fun and maybe break the monotony a little bit.
We're talking with Mike Conrad. He's a teacher over at Royal Oak High School who focuses on video production and advanced TV production. Since you just mentioned DAF, we should also say that you were awarded the 2021 Michigan Educator of the Year award by the organization. I watched the Zoom video. You had no clue it was coming, did you?
I had no clue it was coming. No, they did a really, really good job of pulling the rug out from under me on that one. Yeah.
Well, congratulations. It was fun
Thank
to
you.
watch too, to see your face. You were like, what's going on here? And as
Yeah,
more
I
and more
watched
people
that back.
popped in.
It was pretty cringeworthy watching that back.
No, it was fun. But for those not familiar with DAFT, bring us up to speed. It's a great program. I didn't know about it before today. I'm like, what rock have I been living under, Tyler?
DAFT has been around a long time. The Michigan Student Film Festival is really what DAFT centers around. And the film festival is running. We just celebrated our 53rd year. And I say our because I'm on the board of DAFT. 53 years running a Michigan Student Film Festival. We were known as Detroit area film teachers back in the day. And then as things progressed and film wasn't used anymore, they changed and rebranded themselves as Digital Arts Film and Television. Workshops for teachers, workshops for students, competitions for students, just anything to get student work out and visible and seen is really what it's all about. And with the award, I was nominated by a peer of mine, a colleague of mine, Michael Kaufman, who teaches TV video production at Lance Cruz, the Pankow Center there. So it was really, it meant a lot coming from him because I look up to him. We work a lot sharing ideas, or as he says, stealing from each other. So it really was a nice message coming from him. I appreciated it a lot.
That's great. Well, I'm sure that it was well-deserved as well, even more so coming out of this last year because it's been such a challenge, but also a great time for creativity. Think about this, if this happened even 10 years ago. Our technology was so different, and the phone has really changed our entire world. And I remember, a few years ago, the iPhone came out with someone shot an entire music video on the iPhone. And I'm like, well, they must have a supercharged iPhone because mine doesn't shoot video or pictures like that, But really, the technology has been amazing in the advances in the TV and film world.
Oh, absolutely. I'm finishing my 11th year of teaching. I worked broadcast for 20 years prior to teaching. So coming into this world, we were still shooting on tape, DV tape. We weren't using SD cards 10 years ago. And now, Steven Soderbergh shot an entire film on his iPhone. So, you're right that the progression has been phenomenal so that we can be successful, and as successful as we can be right now. But if we didn't have the technology we had in our hands, or the phones in our pockets, or the microphones on our phones, I don't know where we would be right now.
With that as well, you wonder what the technology is going to be in 15, 20 years from now, how good it's going to be. But it's what's it been like, too, for your students? Because I know even between my husband and I'm an Apple person. He's an Android person. And I will say Android, their phone, their camera, is so much better than the iPhone. I hate to say that.
I'm an Apple person. I love Apple. My son, he's a junior at our high school, he's an Android person. So he's Android PC, and I'm Apple, iPhone, and Mac. So we're always like this.
Right. I will say it's Apple to me is like a bad boyfriend, but I stick around because of AirDrop. It's the only reason.
I just like how everything fuses together. I'm an Apple Music guy too, so it's just I'm all in.
But what's it been like, too, when it comes to the different platforms with your students and having to learn the ins and outs of various platforms to be able to teach them as well?
Well, that actually hasn't been that much of a challenge. WeVideo was the program that I mentioned earlier. It works across all platforms. It also works on mobile devices, PCs, Macs. It works everywhere. So it really helped unify. Everybody could speak the same language. It wasn't we weren't using different software programs or different devices. So I didn't have to say, oh, if you're on an Android, do this, or if you're on an iPhone, do this, or on a Mac. And with cameras, and I mean, most kids are pretty savvy with what they're doing with their cameras. They can know the inner workings of their own devices. So that really wasn't a struggle for this past year and we use Google Drive. Everything is uploaded to Google Drive. We're a Google school district. And then we use WebEx, which works across all platforms as well. So I think we did a pretty good job of finding things that were universal for everybody who was involved to make it equitable. That's the biggest issue that we had in the beginning was, did students have the resources they needed? And we strategically found those things that we needed.
Because on top of that as well, Mike, I'm thinking about even when I tried to learn something new, if you go on YouTube or you're trying to follow along, typically you need 2 devices. I will normally watch it on my iPad, but then try to actually edit or, do things on the actual computer. So did you find that was a challenge for some of the students, or they're just so savvy with their phones that they're good?
It was a small percentage of students that had that issue, but most kids do try to do everything on their phones nowadays. Even before pre-pandemic, when we're in class, they're all trying to write their papers on their phones, and they're all trying to submit all of their work on their phones. When I think all of us know that there's times where the actual workstation, the PC or the Mac, is the better place to do your work. But most kids are very, very savvy with their tech. It was a small percentage, but it was an issue. It reared its head.
So with that, Mike, if I can ask you, because the kids are so savvy, have they taught you anything during this pandemic?
Boy, they did teach me how to be resilient. I noticed that, these kids, and this isn't anything that they taught me that was technology based, but watching them, I mean, some of them went through some very, very horrific times over this past year, and they're still expected to show up and be in school, and we're still expected to push them and try to do their personal best. And there were times where I stopped and said, okay, guys, we're going to throw everything out. I want to hear what you want to do. I want to hear what your struggles and your challenges and what your hopes are right now. And I'm willing to blow things up for the sake of trying something new with you under your leadership and your drive so that we can all stay engaged here. So I learned a lot from them in terms of what they wanted this year, what was possible, what wasn't possible. And that really is helping me transform my class in preparation for next year as well.
So if we can jump forward to next year, fingers crossed, it's back to everyone in person without mask.
I wish I could say I knew. I don't. I know what some of the talk is. I would say that we are trying to be face to face. I don't know if it's going to be with or without masks. I will say, fingers crossed, we've been really lucky. We have not gotten the positive COVID student email in weeks, which has been great. The kids in the building have been phenomenal in terms of following the guidelines and the rules and distancing and wearing their masks. But I don't know what the fall looks like. I'm hoping that that's our trend. I think the test positive rate is below 3% now. It hasn't been there in, I don't know how months and months. So I would like to think that we will be face to face. I would like to think that we'll be not masked, but if we get a peak, we'll have to see what happens in the summer. That's a long ways away.
I know it does seem like, throughout the pandemic, each week is more like, 6 weeks in real world time, right?
Yeah, I mean, we're 2 weeks to the end of the school year. We have graduation tonight. I can't even think past that right now. But my hope is that studio on the other side of the wall right over here is going to be bustling, and we're going to use all the equipment. I have boxes and boxes of equipment that I purchased a year and a half ago that have not even been touched by students yet because they haven't been able to come in and try it. So I'm excited for the fall. I think it's going to be a pretty interesting time.
Oh, I'm sure they are as well. Again, Mike Conrad with us here on the Megacast. He is a teacher over at the Royal Oak High School who was also recently named Michigan Film Educator of the Year. And with that, Mike, before we say goodbye, can you tell us a little bit more about DAF, some of the programs? Is it open to regular people to get involved with as well?
Well, we do workshops. Really what we gear for is students and teachers. That's really what the focus is. And if you are interested in learning about film and video, there are some resources on the website where you can watch some videos and learn how to do some things that we've done. We have a teacher symposium that we hold every December, a student symposium that we hold every December, a summer workshop called Focal Point, which keeps some kids busy with their hands-on gear over the summertime. So if you're not a student or a teacher, you can visit the website, which is daftonline.org, and you can check out some of those resources. But we look for schools to become members, get the kids involved, get the teachers networking. That's really what the hub of what DAFT is.
So many teachers, I would think, after this year are going to be reaching out to all of you because they've come to realize just how important this technology is and can help them reach their students in a different way as well.
Yeah, and it takes a village has never been truer. So it is not something you can do on your own. And if you try, just please come talk to us or talk to some of your other colleagues that take some ideas. We lift each other up and build each other up. I don't think I would have made it through this year without a lot of the close friends I have as colleagues, because we really, really held each other up.
Well, I'm sure the students feel very grateful to you and all of the teachers for all the work that you've done throughout this year. And how lucky are they to have someone with your experience and your background to teach them as they continue to embark in this industry as well?
Well, I do think I've got the best gig around. I mean, it's a lot of fun. The kids love it. They respond to it. I can change things. I can stop on a dime and add something new if some new technology or a new film or television show pops up. We have a good time, and the kids learn a lot along the way.
Well, we appreciate your time as well. So thank you, Mike Conrad, teacher over at the Royal Oak High School, but he was also named the Michigan Film Educator of the Year by DAFT. We appreciate your time. Happy one of the last weeks of the school year to you.
2 to go.
2 to go. Hang in there. You're almost finished.
Yeah.
Thank you again. When we come back,
you.
we'll be speaking with Brian Calley with the Small Business Association. That's next here on the Megacast.
Today, it is easier than ever to join Michigan's Organ Donor Registry and help build a bridge of hope for organ, tissue, and eye donation. Just one person can potentially save or help improve the lives of up to 75 people. By joining, your legacy could be the gift of life. Sign up today at michigan.gov/SOS or at any of the more than 145 Secretary of State self-service stations located across Michigan. Be part of Michigan's Bridge of Hope by adding your name to the Organ Donor Registry.
Who is struggling right now?
I am.
My son is.
Many are struggling with anxiety, depression, and substance use. Before it becomes a crisis, reach out to MyCal, the Michigan Crisis and Access Line, for free confidential support 24/7. Available in the Upper Peninsula and Oakland County. Just call or text 1-844-44-MyCal or chat online at michigan.gov/MyCal. A message from the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services.
Motorcyclists are hard to see. To keep everyone safer, it's important to always look for them and know where most crashes occur. 84% of motorcycle and vehicle crashes happen on streets, not highways. And most crashes with motorcyclists occur when vehicle drivers are turning left. So before turning, especially to the left, make sure you look for motorcyclists. Then look again. It could save a life.
We want to say thank you for taking time out of your Monday to be with us here on the Megacast. Throughout the pandemic, for so many small businesses, the Small Business Association really has been a lifeline for so many of them as we continue to navigate COVID-19. And while it looks like we're on the backside of the pandemic for so many businesses, recovery could be years in the making. Great to bring in Brian Calley with us here again on the Megacast. He's the president for the Small Business Association of Michigan. And Brian, before we even start off, I should say congratulations, because you are also going to be having a little bit of a change in your title there, being named the new CEO as well. So congratulations to you.
I appreciate it. It's really been an honor to get to know and work in this association. It's 51 years old, about 28,000 members, which makes it the largest state-based small business association in the country. And I love the mission, love the people, love the team. And I also love the role that we play in the political system. The policy making and influencing policies, a relatively small part of our overall organization, but it's the part that the public sees. It's the part that we're known for, and we like to engage in a way that is respectful and inclusive, but also forceful for the interests of small business owners that make our communities work.
So with that, Rob Fowler, who will be the outgoing CEO, hopefully he's retiring, taking some time off after this past year. But as you get that CEO name alongside your title as well, how do you hope to be able to shift and navigate the association coming out of the pandemic?
Our relationship with members has never been deeper than it is right now. And leveraging that to build a better future for small business owners is going to be critical. Just to give an example, when MIOSHA proposed permanent workplace safety rules for the pandemic, in other words, rules with no end, we engaged with our members. We asked our members to provide public comment into the system, and we had over 1,800 members submit public comments, which is an extraordinarily high number. And to have that level of engagement, it made a big difference. By the way, about a week later, they withdrew that proposal for those permanent rules. So it was really amazing to see the system work that way. We're just regular, everyday people that were running small businesses around the state, engaged, and it moved the system. It was a real inspiration. Even for me, as long as I've been involved in this process, you don't usually see it work quite that way. We're just everyday, regular people engaged in the system in a way that it had to be reckoned with.
What's it been like for you as well? Because we do know you were lieutenant governor, so you have that political background as well, which offers insight and knowledge into how government works. So what's it been like for you to take that knowledge and put it into this private sector?
I always knew it would be important insight to bring into the association, but I don't think I fully appreciated how important it would be when it came to curating, deciphering, translating the orders and the information coming out of government, and also having a sense for how those decisions get made in the first place and the things that influence those decisions. So being able to kind of forecast what was coming in the future. Usually if more strict rules were on the horizon, it's something that I could see coming because I knew what the government was looking at and making those decisions. That's not to say I agreed with the decisions that were being made, but to say I understood and could predict the direction that they were going. And so it has been really important to our members and a closer relationship than we've ever had, in that it's a very uncertain, it has been a very uncertain time period. And while hopefully more certainty is in our future, looking back at this last year, that was really the thing that I know so many small business owners had a hard time dealing with or coping with, is just not knowing what to plan for, what the future was going to hold, and kind of having their destiny taken out of their hands. And that, I think that's one of the long-term missions that we have coming out of this is to create a scenario where small business owners who are a part of the community and they treat their employees and their customers like family, because in a lot of cases, literally they are family, they can be trusted to do it the right way. And so I think as we look toward the long term, I think keeping really the focus on giving small business owners back the steering wheel to their own business is critically important.
Well, talk about perfect timing, though. You joined the association and then this pandemic happening. Your insight, I would just imagine, had to be so vital and so many pieces of these conversations. But we do know, we're still in the middle of the pandemic. Hopefully we are emerging. Things are looking hopeful. But businesses are still struggling, especially small businesses, because trying to recover from months and of lower revenue, or even in some cases, some of these businesses didn't have any revenue coming in, and they're still struggling. How long do you anticipate it's going to take for us to have a solid recovery here for our small businesses in Michigan?
it's so important to understand that the top line economic statistics do not tell the story about what's happening industry by industry, and then according to size of business within those industries. So smaller retail companies, those who serve office workers. So for example, the janitorial services in office buildings, or the office buildings themselves, dry cleaners, and just all that whole ecosystem of businesses that serve office workers, they're only just now getting at a point where their markets are starting to come back. So after a year when you might see some of the behemoth businesses in Michigan, and the industries that kind of were known for, they've been largely recovered over the course of the last year, coming out of the spring of 2020. But sit-down restaurants, fitness facilities, entertainment-related businesses, those who serve office workers, downtown districts, those areas are only just starting to recover now. And I think it's important to keep that in mind. And at the same time, when they have the shot at going back at it, since they were the last ones to the table, they're having a hard time finding employees as well. So whereas other industries were able to kind of snatch up available employees because they were open and operating and running over this time period, think about that sit-down restaurant that's finally got a chance to get back going, and they can't even stay open because they can't find enough employees. And by the way, they're doing their part in terms of raising wages and benefits and incentives. I mean, all kinds of changes that they're doing. It's just not enough people in the workforce right now.
Yeah, and we should point out as well, when we're having that conversation of, it should be a minimum of $15 an hour, and the benefits should be better, and this is a wake-up call to America to pay their employees more. You do wonder, sometimes these small businesses have very, very small profit margins. And so when you're mandating and trying to mandate these from a government level, you could be really shutting out even more of these small businesses that, for so many of them, they've only relied or, survived throughout the pandemic because of the graciousness of having family members and friends who have stepped in to try to help them keep the doors open.
And so many are paying more than $15 an hour in the entry level positions in the business. But what's happening today is that the federal plus state benefit and unemployment is the equivalency of about $16.55 an hour. So let's say a business comes to the table and they're hiring somebody for $20 an hour. Well, the incremental improvement over that unemployment benefit is only $3.45 an hour. So now you're saying to that employee, hey, you want to get back into the workforce, work 40 hours a week, and it's only incrementally $3.45 more than unemployment would be in the first place. So even $20, $22, $24, $25 an hour, those types of jobs are having a hard time competing with the unemployment system, because you can't really compete with 20 weeks off. I mean, that's if that's what's important to somebody. And then you got a whole slew of other issues, barriers to people coming to work as well, that deserve public policy answers, including things like childcare. That's why our association's getting more involved in education and childcare issues than we ever have before, because and then criminal justice reform as well. There are a lot of people that are kind of sidelined right now, and not because they don't want to be, and not because they want to be sidelined, but because this life circumstance is dictated. So as we consider all of these issues, I think it's important that we try to tackle each one of them. It's not just the unemployment benefit; that's one of the pieces. It's also the child care system. We need to make sure that the K-12 system is open and operational in a more predictable way, so that parents can have more confidence in getting back re-engaging in the workforce. I mean, there's a lot of different facets to it. And I think if we're going to capitalize on the economic momentum that has started, it's going to require that we expand the size of our workforce.
We're talking with Brian Calley. He's the president for the Small Business Association of Michigan. And Brian, with that, do you think what's going to be the silver lining coming out of this for some of our small businesses?
Well, there's an entrepreneurial boom happening right now. So a lot of new business filings have happened over the last year, and kind of surprising in terms of the number. So while we know a lot of businesses are struggling, a lot of others have, in this new and different world, have seen some opportunity and are taking the plunge and going after it. So I think we will look back at this time period and see it as one of those periods where this entrepreneurial spirit was sparked again, and created all kinds of other opportunities and growth. At least that's the hope. Small businesses are, when they're new, are very fragile, and how many will make it long term, that's definitely an open question. But the sheer volume of what we see happening right now, I think, is reason for optimism.
That's good to hear. And with that, can we kind of touch on the subject of some of the loans and grants that have been out there? Where do they stand? Because we know in the beginning of this pandemic, especially when it came to the PPP, they would be gone. The money would be gone within hours and days. Where do some of these loans stand currently? Is there any money still out there for some of these small businesses to try to get?
The Paycheck Protection Program has run its course now. And so that's it was hugely successful, though, for most businesses and most industries. It didn't work for every single business, but to their credit, Congress and our previous and current presidents both responded to the early criticisms of the Paycheck Protection Program, and I think created a system that was much more accessible to small businesses across the board. What's left now out of the Small Business Administration of the United States federal government expanded or increased economic injury disaster loans, the EIDL loans. Those are low interest, long-term loans that have more favorable terms than what you'd normally get in the marketplace, that are tied to those who suffered economic injuries. So those are still out there and available. But I think really the main thing is for the future, it's not going to be about grants and loans and things from the government. It's going to be the ability to predictably operate under a reasonable set of rules with a workforce that can handle the demand for people. I think if we get those pieces right, then we'll have a bright future.
Right, because small businesses, they can't operate day by day, week by week. A lot of them are putting a plan together that requires months in advance.
Building a business, it requires consistency, and you have this incremental growth and improvement over time. And so it's not like you can close down, stay closed or restricted for a period of time, and then just turn it back on. In a lot of ways, businesses, even very mature businesses that were around for a long time, they're literally back in startup mode. They're starting from scratch, and they're experienced entrepreneurs, and they're confident, can-do type people, and they're going after it. But you have businesses that before were like out of that start, they were consistent out of that startup phase and at a point of maturity. But when you have to be closed or significantly restricted for a year, then any of that momentum, your customer base, your employee base, a lot of them have gone other places to have their needs met. And so that puts those business owners in the unenviable position of having to literally start over again. And that's why I'm always trying to encourage people to take that kind of pro small business inclination that most people have and put it into action, intentional and deliberate action to help small businesses to recover. And that means going out of your way to give them some of your business. When you have an option, you could go this way, you could go that way. You could buy it from somebody who's very far away, or maybe buy from somebody who's close, that has an interest in your community, that supports your community. I think that would be just a good, realistic thing that almost everybody could do.
Yeah, I will say, it's become a habit. You go on Amazon, and the other day I went to get something for the dog, and I was like, wait, no, let me see first if I can buy it at the pet store down the street, because, they are local, and it's a small business as well. And I do worry, as we continue to come out of the pandemic, that message of supporting local is starting to wane as life gets back to normal. But we had to remember, even outside of a pandemic, we need to support these local businesses because they make our communities unique. And with that, too, we should remember we're still under restrictions here in the state of Michigan. We've talked to people who have left, took their businesses to other states such as Florida or Indiana. But as we emerge out of this, what is your forecast for some of the small businesses here in the state for the summer and the next 6 months? Are we on the back end of this, do you think?
So far, it looks pretty good that that we're heading in. Summer is a time when the infection rates get low anyway, even without the vaccine. Vaccination rates are still going at about 100,000 additional first vaccines per week. And so Michigan doing pretty well on that front, which I think long-term gives us some protection of problems coming back in the future. But in terms of the businesses who are operating, yeah, I mean, it really is industry specific. There are some that have recovered quite nicely, others that have found more or additional opportunity out of the changes that have happened, but there are some that are really trying to pick up the pieces and the wreckage of these changes. And so I think from the public policy standpoint, it's important to try to anticipate those changes that have happened that are more permanent, that displace workers and businesses, and try to be inclusive in creating a pathway for how you get from where they were to a place in the future that is connected to more opportunity.
You're listening to 89.3 WBLD Orchard Lake, 88.1 WBFH Bloomfield Hills. Brian Calley with us here on the Megacast. Before we say goodbye, anything maybe I didn't touch on that you want to add?
Well, I would just say that coming up after July 1st, the population-wide restrictions, capacity limits, and face mask requirements for the general public, all that goes away. So the governor has said that epidemic emergency order will not be renewed. That's a good sign. But we do still have in place from now all the way through October 14th, the workplace safety rules. I think that the COVID-19 emergency workplace safety rules are going to need to be revisited before October 14th. It's somewhat awkward for a business owner to essentially manage and enforce emergency workplace safety rules at a time when the public health emergency has expired. And so one of the things, a big to-do item on our list is to get the state, MIOSHA, to put an earlier termination date on the COVID-specific workplace safety rules so that they more closely match up with what is being issued out of the public health department.
Brian Calley with us. We have always appreciated your time with us here on the Megacast, and I know so many of our viewers and listeners do as well, because it's been a confusing time in trying to navigate these rules and regulations as they've been changing sometimes week by week, month by month. And I know that you and your team have been a huge support for so many of these businesses who, prior to this, didn't know how to navigate the grant world. And so I know that you're appreciated, and we wish you best of luck in your new role as CEO that I believe starts, in the new year?
That's right, starting January 1st.
Well, and best to Rob Fowler as well. So thank you again for your time.
Thank you.
We'll take a quick break here on the Megacast. Still a lot to get to in the second hour of the show.
One of the things you can look for in your friends is a change in behavior.
These can be big changes, they can be small changes in mood, physical appearance.
They may be sleeping less or sleeping more, drinking more, or their eating patterns may be different.
One big change that can be pretty obvious is change in motivation. Do they no longer want to play basketball? Do they no longer want to play video games?
Now that we're spending more time online and in virtual settings, it's really important to pay attention to the language that your friend is using and the words they're using to communicate.
So when we text our friends, are they taking longer amounts of time to respond? Are they not responding at all? You don't have to be an expert to try to recognize these signs. The second that you feel it in your gut and that you're concerned, that's the second to have the conversation and open the door to what might be going on.
Can I ask you a question? Why did you get your kids vaccinated?
It was hard for them to social distance, to be isolated from their friends.
want them to get back to school and sports games. So as a pediatrician, I recommend the vaccine to everyone I know.
The boys lost a former teammate and classmate who was only 20 years old. It's been a devastating year.
We want to get back to normalcy. Our daughter is really looking forward to being with her friends, being a kid.
We want to say thank you for taking time out of your day to be with us here on the Megacast. Tyler and I are here Monday through Friday, 10 a.m. until noon. You can always catch us at Civic Center TV, Birmingham Area Municipal Access. Also, Channel 15 if you have Comcast, 99 on AT&T. If you're out driving around, tune us in on the radio dial, 89.3 Lakes FM, 88.1 FM The Biff. And then we are also live streaming today's edition of the show on our Facebook page. Looking at our next guest, I'm like, he has one of the coolest backgrounds ever. It's a working background.
Yes.
We're happy to bring in Bob Van Til with us here on the Megacast. He's a professor over at Oakland University. Thank you for being with us, Professor.
Thank you. Appreciate the time, giving me a chance to talk a little bit about what we're doing here.
The work that you and your team are doing over there is so important and vital right now to help our students land those important jobs that are going to help them in their future. So with that, you are also the chair of the Industrial and Systems Engineering Department. What exactly do you teach over there except for how to tinker with a lot of things?
Industrial systems engineering is sort of the unknown domain of engineering. It's a very old domain going back to the first industrial revolution, the founding of the steam engine, that time frame, mid-1800s. Its roots are in manufacturing design. Historically, it's called just industrial engineering, which is a marketing nightmare of a name. People hear that name and, oh boy, I'm going to be in a factory all day building stuff. And it's like, no, those are the operations people. The roots of industrial engineering are actually engineering, designing, and improving the manufacturing systems themselves. That's the root core product. Now, over time, that's expanded to a lot of other flow systems and areas like ergonomics and other areas. And so the end systems has been more of a recent append onto the name to say, hey, it's a lot more than just manufacturing. We take that very serious here at Oakland. We're one of, while a lot of schools call themselves industrial systems engineering, they only accredit in industrial engineering from ABET. We are accredited, we're one of 6 programs in the United States that are accredited in both industrial engineering and in systems engineering.
So with that, Professor, if I can ask you as well, because we're looking at the computer monitor behind you, what has it been like for you to try to teach throughout the pandemic when it appears to me you would probably need people in person?
Well, actually engineering, that's modern engineering. Digital domain, Industry 4.0, digital twin, smart manufacturing, all these terms are all about going into the digital domain. So we're in the Scharf Computer Integrated Manufacturing Lab. And what you see behind me is some of the equipment you would see in a manufacturing environment, a modern environment, robots, vision systems, PLCs, et cetera. And most of the people hands-on with that equipment out on the floor really are technicians. What engineers do is they would take all that equipment and integrate with people and processes and design the manufacturing system. And in the old days, they would do it by buying all this equipment, putting it all together. That's not what happens. You're in the digital domain now. You do all this in digital environments. And this area really, really took off with the Internet of Things. A lot of the tools you're seeing running behind me existed for a while, but getting the data to make them realistic was very difficult. And with the Internet of Things and Ethernet and networking, you can gather that data cheaply, easily, and enough to make the systems work. And so that has been when Industry 4.0 kind of took off. It was based on the fact that now you can do this on the digital domain. You can do very complex design, get very close to the final design with minimal investment of equipment and easy to make changes. I mean, it's very easy in a change to move something around in the digital way. The robot got to move 2 inches to the right because it's not quite reaching. Well, just move it over 2 inches to the right. You're done. You do that on a setup and okay, everybody shut down, get out of the cell, bring in mill rights. 2 days later, we're ready to go. And so this is where engineering is. This is the engineering. So what we do with this stuff is give our students the physical. Hey, see this stuff? This is the hands-on. You can see how this stuff works. But they do all their engineering work over here.
Wow.
In fact, what you're seeing right now is a digital twin of this system right here. And so the students will come in, they'll run the system, they'll gather information on it to understand the physical, because you need to connect those two things. You can't strictly play in this domain. You need to know, hey, it means physical stuff. And then they run off and they do all their engineering work over there in that digital domain.
So with that, Professor, do you believe that this has opened up, because of the changes in technology, has opened up this career option to more and more people?
Industrial systems engineering has always been a great career option. Again, we launched our program in about 2005. The engineering school was back to the 1960s, but we launched our ISE program about 2005. And we've been growing pretty strong since then. All our students get jobs, most stay locally, although they go a lot of other places. What the neat thing is, a lot of different industries, again, from the systems aspect, if you have flow, you have industrial and systems engineers. If a supply chain is really a manufacturing system, things flow through it. You go into the finance industry, data flow, decision flow, analysis. The things flowing through a system does not have to be physical. We run a senior design project almost every semester with Comerica Bank at their IT center, which is about a mile from our university. A team will work on some kind of a flow issue going on inside of that financial institution.
We're talking with Brian Van Til. He's a professor over at Oakland University and the chair for the Industrial Systems Engineering Department. And if I could just take a moment to recognize you, you've been named one of the 20 most influential academics by Smart Manufacturing magazine. That's quite the honor. Congratulations.
Thank you. We appreciate it. It's really a team effort. It's from everything we've done around here in building this program since launch. Again, we really early on went into Smart Manufacturing Digital Industry 4.0. We actually went into that predating a lot of those terms. A lot of those terms have sprung up to describe things we've been doing since, again, 2005.
So with that as well, going forward, are you teaching back in person right now?
Right now, it's up in the air on the fall. The university hasn't made the final. There will be some amount of in-person going on. The past year, it was all online, mostly synchronous online. We'd hold the classes at normally scheduled times and days and do it interactive to get more interaction with the students. Really important in engineering that you have that back-forth interaction.
So what's it been like for you as a professor over the past year? Did you like being virtual, or you want to get back to in-person?
I want to get back. I'm a hands-on person. I really like the give and take, and I try to bring that into the online to virtual environment. But engineering is really about problem solving. It was just a matter of, look up the formulas, apply them, solve the problems, no big deal. But it's building the problems. The real key in engineering is understanding the problem. Once you understand the problem, the solutions are easy. It's going through that thought process to problem solve, and being live in the class where you can really get the give and take going. It really makes a difference for me. I think it's pretty critical to the higher level engineering classes.
Yeah. So with that as well, when we're talking about some of the students, where are they mostly local students, or are you teaching students from other countries as well? Because this seems like such a sought-after program.
Oakland is primarily a commuter school. 80+% of our students actually live locally and commute in, don't live on campus. And so we have a large local base. We've always had that. As we've grown, we've gotten a lot more outreach through the Midwest. We're starting to see more students coming in, but we're still primarily local. And what's interesting is our graduates, from the undergrad perspective, want to stay local. They 90+% stay in Southeast Michigan. I'll have an internship like down in Redford at Daimler. I'll have a hard time filling it because it's like, oh my gosh, all the way down. I have to drive all the way down to 696 and Telegraph Road. Do you have something closer? Our students really like to stay in Southeast Michigan. It's really interesting. Fortunately, there's a lot of opportunities here, a lot of different places. That said, I've had students go to Colorado for aerospace, the West Coast for startups, the Florida Disney. Most Disney Imagineers are actually industrial systems engineers.
Really?
So students intern down there. Like, they're big flow systems. You got all these people flowing through the park.
Yeah.
How do you make that efficient? People don't want to. You spend a lot of money, go down there and spend all day sitting in line. You're gonna leave not real happy. They want you going through stuff, and so they want you flowing. And so the Fast Pass system, if you're familiar with that, industrial engineers at Disney came up with that system to flow people through the park more efficiently.
Wow, that is fascinating to me. And Bob, you just did briefly mention, you talked about internships. What's it been like, though, for some of the students and internships over the past year? Because we know a lot of businesses weren't even allowing their own employees into the office. So has it been a challenge for some of your students to get internships?
It's still been pretty good. Traditionally, by the time they graduate, 90+% of our students have paid internships. In engineering, you're paid. You're very well paid, no matter what level you're at. So they're always paid internships. But a surprising number, because of the digital tools and the things you can do with these tools, engineering you can do with these tools, are still doing internships virtually. Companies are using them still as recruiting efforts and getting extra work done.
Bob Van Til with us here on the Megacast. He's a professor over at Oakland University and the chair for the Industrial Systems Engineering Department. And with that, Bob, too, how do you think the pandemic has changed your industry overall? Or has it? Will there be more opportunities for students coming out of the pandemic?
It's been strong. It went down a little bit, but it still seems pretty strong. I think those opportunities will still be there. There's a lot of interesting things going on. All the recent focus on supply chain, and the ship getting stuck in Suez, the fact that you're doing all these crazy things. A lot of that, people try to think that's because of lean, which it really isn't. In lean manufacturing, if you're familiar with that term, lean, the Toyota production system, transportation is a waste. You add value to a product by doing something a consumer wants to pay for. Me spending money to move a part from point A to point B and then charging you for it, because that's how I get my, that's the only way I can. You don't want to pay for that. I don't want to pay for your fancy conveyor to move cars around the plant. Move them on the cheap conveyor and reduce the cost of my car. That's value add. And so people are misinterpreting just in time, which is a lean concept. And these huge supply chains as being that, but they're not. Lean is about being local, buying local. Moving stuff is wasteful.
It really is a fascinating side of the world, the global supply chain that so many of us don't think about. With that, before we say goodbye, any advice you would be able to offer to maybe high school students who, if they don't know what they want to do, but they think they like engineering or they're problem solvers, any advice you'd like to offer them?
Don't be afraid of math. That's unfortunately a foundational tool that you have to have for engineering. That said, if you're really, really a hands-on person and just, the math doesn't work for me, there are technology degrees that let you get close to engineering. Career opportunities aren't quite the same, but they're very good opportunities. You will make it through the math and get it through the engetting.
Bob, when you're talking about math, though, are we talking about new math or old math?
Talking about calculus.
That at least hasn't changed, right?
Yeah, that hasn't changed. That's just a basic tools to understand what's going on, around engineering. Everything's built off that. There's just basic tools of engineering. Focus on what you want. Learn about all the different areas, and don't think that just because you've seen one mechanical, electrical, industrial engineer tell you what they do, that they all do that. You're seeing ergonomics going on in the background right now. I talked a lot about the digital twin for this system and flow. Industrial engineers, when they design manufacturing systems, people are part of the thing they design. They're not users, but they're actually embedded in the product itself. And so ergonomics, how do you do things to make sure the person doesn't injure themselves, short-term, long-term, whatever, becomes critical. And that's a whole domain. Human factors and ergonomics is one of the areas you can get in with industrial engineering. Supply chain, manufacturing, lean, quality improvement, operations, management. There's all these different things you can do within the degree. And so kind of, look all across the degree as much as you can and pick wisely. We're lucky at Oakland, we have a 2-year core. You can show up here being any kind of engineer you want, mechanical, electrical, computer, industrial systems, bioengineering. And for the first 2 years, everybody kind of takes the same group of courses. And you can really investigate, see what's going on with other students, and kind of like, oh yeah, about 2 years in, you can change your major to, oh, that's interesting. And we'll get a lot of students in industrial systems. I'd never heard of that term. Mechanical is very well known. So a lot of mechanical engineers will come in and realize, well, I'm a little more of a people person. Industrial engineering, you can be more of a people person.
So fascinating. Bob Van Til with us here. He's a professor at Oakland University, but also the chair for the Industrial and Systems Engineering Department. And Bob, again, we want to say congratulations on being recognized for the work that you do. And also, let's hope that next year your students are right there back in person.
Yeah, I hope so. I love the interactions.
Well, if you could figure out and solve the problem of the pandemic, we would all appreciate that, right? So we wish you the best of luck. And again, thank you for your time.
Thank you. Appreciate it. It was just fun.
Bob Van Til over at Oakland University. They have so many interesting programs of study, areas of study over there at Oakland University. So it's great. I think this is the first time we've had an engineer on.
Yeah, it is. It's the first time we've had an engineer, I believe, from Oakland University. But and even just within engineering, there are so many different areas of work that, as Bob talked about, and Oakland has that as well. And so and so do other universities here in the state of Michigan and in the local area. And there's always something that can be explored differently and more problems to be solved going forward.
So we want to take a quick break here on the Megacast. Still about 40 minutes left here in the show. And when we come back, we'll be speaking to the owner and the designer over at Sage Green Events. So we just recently had Brian Calley, of course, on the top of the 10 o'clock hour, end of the 10 o'clock hour with us here on the Megacast. And when we come back, we'll be talking with one of those small business owners. That's next here on the Megacast.
Can I ask you a question? Why did you get vaccinated?
I'd like to go to these school dances and spring break to have fun.
I want to be in person for college next semester.
I want to get out of this pandemic.
I wanted to protect the people around me.
Why did you get vaccinated?
Because I'm really looking forward to hanging out with my friends.
I just want to go to a show, dance around, not have to worry about anything, feel like I'm free again.
So we can not miss out on the best years of our life.
People are getting out to walk and bike in higher numbers. More vulnerable road users and higher speed traffic can be a dangerous combination. Crash severity has increased, so if you're driving, be sure to slow down and look for people. There's no need to speed. If you're biking, ride with traffic. If you're walking, avoid stepping into the road if possible. If you have to walk in the street, walk facing traffic. Learn more at walkbikedrivesafe.org.
One of the things you can look for in your friends is a change in behavior.
These can be big changes, they can be small changes in mood, physical appearance.
They may be sleeping less or sleeping more, drinking more, or their eating patterns may be different.
One big change that can be pretty obvious is change in motivation. Do they no longer want to play basketball? Do they no longer want to play video games?
Now that we're spending more time online and in virtual settings, it's really important to pay attention to the language that your friend is using and the words they're using to communicate.
So when we text our friends, are they taking longer amounts of time to respond? Are they not responding at all? You don't have to be an expert to try to recognize these signs. The second that you feel it in your gut and that you're concerned, that's the second to have the conversation and open the door to what might be going on.
Whatever gets you talking.
Well, welcome back to the Megacast. I'm Ronnie Dahl here in the studios alongside Mr. Tyler Keefe. I will say, Tyler, I kind of miss working from home.
I think a lot of people are going to have that I miss working from home feeling as they go back into work. It's a different thing. It's different having your own environment there, setting your own space, and then sharing a space with other people.
Well, I always had fresh flowers and a candle burning.
Yeah, we don't do that here. No, we are no flowers, no candles. we are an empty environment with no aroma.
One of the best places to get flowers here locally, too, if you're right here in the Kego area, is Sage Green Events. They're right there next to the Dairy Queen. It is the cutest shop ever. So we're excited to bring in the owner and the designer, Erin Schoneman. She is with Sage Green Events. You guys aren't that old.
No, we're not. We will be 2 years old at the end of August.
Oh my gosh, to open up and then the pandemic hits. But before we jump into that, what a beautiful backdrop you have.
Thank you. So these flowers are left over from our event we had this past weekend. So I figured this would be a good reuse.
It most definitely is. And the event, you're so creative at coming up with some of the events. Tell people more about it. Tell them what they missed, by the way. We did sneak our dog up when you guys were closed because I had work Saturday. So we snuck our dog up with the sign behind her to take her picture.
So cute. Yeah, it was called Pedalpalooza, and it was Saturday and Sunday. We had local artisans, live entertainment, of course, flowers. What else? We had some henna artists. We had food. It was just a big festival of good vibes and positive energy and bringing community together.
So we were like with Trixie Dixie, the Wonder Dog. She's a rescue and she's great with other dogs, Erin. She's not so great with people just yet. So we can't wait to be able to bring her to events such as that. But I took her to Dairy Queen to get her a little ice cream. Don't tell her dad, by the way. But Woody had to go back to work and she was moping around all sad. So I took her out, and you guys had already shut down for the day, but they had a big peace sign. It was so adorable. You guys are so amazing with some of the events that you come up with. So I snuck Trixie over to take her picture in it, hoping that she absorbs some of that positive vibe and the peacefulness.
Chill out moment, right?
Exactly. And so with that too, because I love that you also connected with some of the local restaurants to come up with that event. How do you do this? How do you keep coming up with new things?
I think my mind never stops, but I really just want to try to bring everyone together, because what I've learned with Sage Green is all of these small businesses are doing really cool things. And if we make these connections with these other small businesses together, we're just really awesome. You know, maybe you wouldn't know they're doing this or that. So I just try to reach out to everybody that I see doing cool things and support our little local community network. And that's what I'm trying to do.
Well, we're so lucky to have you here in Kego. But as you mentioned, you also just opened up 2 years ago. I follow you on Instagram and Facebook. But I remember, I think someone on So Kego posted it. And I was like, oh, it's going to be great to have them here. And with that, though, you open up, and then the pandemic hits, because you're not just about the shop. It's the events and the weddings. How'd you survive the past year?
Well, it was interesting. You know, I actually started weddings before I opened the floral shop. I was doing it out of my basement at home. And so we became more popular. And so I was like, you know what, maybe a brick and mortar will be important. But then 6 months after opening, everything shut down. So that was when my wheels started turning and I decided to switch gears and maybe focus more on the floral shop itself. We started a program called the Bouquet Club, and that is a subscription. We were able to deliver bouquets to people that were interested in it. It's a weekly, bi-weekly, or once a month program. Now, because we're open, our club members can come pick up in store, but that's really what kept us alive, afloat, you know? So that was essential. I had to like think outside of the box. How can we generate some business and also make people happy during this sad time?
And you did do that. I remember you guys went around and you flower bombed the community. That was so cute.
Yeah, thank you. We, our flower warehouse distributor, they had to close as well, so they messaged me saying, they have a lot of these flowers that they're going to have to throw away. And I was like, oh, please don't do that. We can do something really awesome. And we decided to do that. We went around little parks here in Kego Harbor and in Sylvan Lake and some of the local restaurants and just made really pretty floral installations for people to enjoy, because everybody at that time was freaking out. They didn't know what was going to go on and what was going to happen. So we just wanted to share a little joy.
And I remember back at that time too, boy, never thought we'd be still in this a year later, but getting flowers because you came up with giving them to your neighbors and they had little notes on them and stuff. And so, although I did add either wine bottles or liquor bottles to mine when I delivered them to my neighbors and my friends, but it really was in those beginning days such an important way to uplift other people, and we need to keep that going outside of the pandemic, I think, as well.
I think so. And I think some people have caught on to flowers. Maybe they weren't flower people before the pandemic, but now they've received them or gifted them, and they really see the joy that it brings to other people and themselves, the life it brings into your home. So we've noticed people have really caught on to the flower joy, and they've been coming around a lot.
Erin Schoneman with us here on the Megacast. She's the owner and designer at Sage Green Events in Kego Harbor. And Erin, with that, as we go into a wedding season here in the state of Michigan, we know so many people delayed their weddings last year. And they're going to be having this summer. We're still in some capacity limitations, but do you anticipate that things are going to get back on track when it comes to that side of your business?
Oh yeah, we've already noticed it. A couple weekends ago we had 3 weddings.
What?
Which I would never ever take on 3 weddings in one weekend, but they were sadly some of our 2020 brides that had to reschedule maybe 2, 3, 4 times. And so, absolutely, I said, yes, you have a venue that can host you this weekend. Yes, we'll take it on, and we did it. I don't recommend that for mental health, but we have already seen weddings moving full speed ahead, and venues are happy to welcome these, because they've been hurting as well. So it's definitely picked up already.
I just, and my thoughts with anyone who is connected to the wedding industry, because there can be, I don't want to call them bridezillas, but, planning a wedding is stressful enough. We got married not all that long ago, but we ended up changing ours from the community center in Sylvan Lake to Bald Head Island, North Carolina. I canceled it like a couple months out. I said, no, too big. Too much drama. I'm having a small wedding, because it's so stressful outside of a pandemic, but in the middle of a pandemic as well. Have you seen a switch in how people approach weddings? Do you think coming out of the pandemic, they want them bigger than ever, or because of the pandemic, they realize how important just their immediate friends and family are, and they want to celebrate smaller?
Yes, we have. There's been 2 different types of brides. One that will definitely hold off on everything, because having a big wedding and the big show is very important to them. And others that were a little relieved that they could cut the guest list down and maybe spend a little less money and make it a little more intimate, or maybe they're just not really big people person, maybe a little more intimate and quiet, it's more their jam. We saw a lot of that too. So I think moving forward, what we call micro wedding is going to continue to be a wedding fad. It's smaller, more intimate, and just your immediate family. So we have seen a lot of that happening.
I will say, and everyone has their own desire. My brother, when he got married, when they approved, same-sex marriages, he had a huge wedding, because he was like, I waited 20 years for this. I am having the biggest wedding possible. Like, he's an artist, and I was like, no, we had 18 people, but it was a whole weekend, and everyone said it was the most fun they had, because you actually got to spend time with each other. Like, I've been to some weddings, you're lucky if you say hi to the bride and groom. So, but everyone kind of does it their own way. But with that, as we survive this pandemic and we start to emerge on the outside, what is your favorite venue to be able to work in? for weddings, or do you have too many?
Oh, I have so many. Gosh, and I've been asked this question before. It's such a hard answer. I think I really like historical venues. I'm a fan of old architecture, so a lot of these downtown Detroit buildings that have turned into venues, I love. There's one right down the street from us called the Treasury. It's in Pontiac. It's newer. It's beautiful. It's a really old bank. That's one of my favorites too. So yeah, I guess I have to say like grand old buildings. But I also just really love like an outdoor wedding too. So I'm so mixed.
I would think the train station in Detroit would be really cool.
Yes.
And I will say too, I've been through so many abandoned buildings in Detroit. There are some really cool old factories that would make amazing backdrops, but you'd really have to do a lot of work to clear out all the asbestos and debris, but it would be awesome.
Ford Croquette plant in Detroit is a beautiful venue.
Detroit Whiskey Factory.
Yes. Oh man, you're labeling so many good ones. They're all good. I love those old factories. Yeah.
So cool. Hey, Erin, so with that though, back to the shop, any other cool events coming up other than, the Flower Pedalpalooza?
Oh man. I'm still tired from that one.
Did you think it was going to be as popular as it was?
I didn't know really what to expect. It was our first one. We do want to make it an annual thing, so Pedalpalooza 2022 will be a thing. So you'll have to keep your eye out for that for our annual Pedalpalooza. But we kind of like to do a little event each season. So last year we did a fall equinox, like outdoor thing. So I imagine we'll do something like that again. We like to welcome each season with a little festival with flowers and goods from local artists.
I know you've done yoga in the studio before, but what about some type of thing of yoga on the water right there at Dollar Lake?
Amazing. I think people have done that before. I'm sure there's been yoga instructors out there.
Yeah, we haven't had them close by though. I think Sylvan Lake maybe.
Yeah.
But with that, where can people find out more about Sage Greens? And I will say, follow them on social media. But you're like an expert of really utilizing social media. And for any business out there who maybe you struggle with social media, you don't know how to use it, follow Sage Green because you do a really good job of being creative with your post and how you shoot things. And have you found that that's been a big help to you and your team?
100%. It's kind of been essential, actually. Our website, we really don't have a current website. It's pretty much just representative of our wedding industry stuff. So I am working on one for the shop, but everything changes so frequently with flowers and events that it's really hard to keep up with that. So that's why I put all of my energy to social media. So if you do want to keep in touch with us and know what's going on, one, you can always call us. We always answer the phone if we are here. But social media, Instagram, Facebook, that's the best place to really keep up with us.
And with that, Erin Schoneman with us here on the Megacast. She's the owner and designer for Sage Green Events. And if anyone out there, shop local. We've said it before. Brian Calley was just on with us here with the Small Business Association. We need businesses such as yours to really survive, but thrive as well, because you make up the uniqueness of our communities. So as someone who lives in Keiko Harbor, I want to say thank you for moving into our area and not someone else's.
I love it so much. I'm really happy I was able to find a place in Keiko Harbor. My kids go to school at Roosevelt, so I had to, right?
See, that makes it easy for you as well.
Yeah.
Fingers crossed that Roosevelt stays open.
I know. This is a beautiful community, so I do want to say thank you to everybody that has come and supported us through the pandemic. It's you guys, it's our community and our followers, it's our friends and family. The support has been heart lifting and amazing. So thank you for that.
Oh, well, we're so lucky to have you. And as a flower nerd, I'll put you on the spot one last time before we let you go. Your favorite flower?
Why did I know you were going to ask me this question? I knew it. That changes so frequently, really, with the seasons. One day it might be a peony, the next day a dahlia. But I was a little prepared. I did, because I knew you were going to ask this question. I pulled out some of my favorite roses. They're called Quicksand, and they're the most beautiful muted blush color. I like to use them a lot. They're beautiful wedding flowers, but look really nice in anybody's home. So Quicksand rose. It's a standard rose, but it opens up really big and beautiful like a garden rose.
It looks amazing. So do you grow flowers yourself? Or
I do. Eventually, big goals. I want to have a little mini flower farm, but right now I get a lot of my flowers from local farms and actually all over the world. But yeah, I have a little garden at home that I like to cut from.
Well, that's good because, I need to figure out what your address is. I might come pick them because all of mine are dying already between me and this hot sun and my black thumb and the deer.
Yep, the deer are always an issue. I battle with the deer myself.
I know, they're so cute. And we put a little pond in our backyard, so we have the running water. It attracts more, which is great because I still get excited to see them, except for when I look down and everything around it is nubs right now because they've been going to town.
You have to get a deer spray. They sell it at all like home improvement stores. I spray my plants all the time with this deer spray.
Oh, see? Yeah. Look at that. There's a tip for all of us.
How about that?
Erin, it's so fun having you on with us. We so appreciate your time because I know you've been crazy busy. But we wish you continued success. And again, great to have you in the Kegel neighborhood.
Thank you. Thank you for having me today.
Again, visit them, Sage Green Events. They are right there next to Dairy Queen on Orchard Lake Road. And I will say it's like no other flower shop that you'll go in, visit them, but she supports local as well. So let's continue to support her and her team. We'll take a quick break here on the Megacast. When we come back, we'll round out the show talking about culinary art therapy. That's next here on the Megacast.
Today it is easier than ever to join Michigan's Organ Donor Registry and help build a bridge of hope for organ, tissue, and eye donation. Just one person can potentially save or help improve the lives of up to 75 people. By joining, your legacy could be the gift of life. Sign up today at michigan.gov/SOS or at any of the more than 145 Secretary of State self-service stations located across Michigan. Be part of Michigan's Bridge of Hope by adding your name to the Organ Donor Registry.
Who is struggling right now?
I am.
My son is.
Many are struggling with anxiety, depression, and substance use. Before it becomes a crisis, reach out to MyCal, the Michigan Crisis and Access Line for free confidential support 24/7. Available in the Upper Peninsula and Oakland County. Just call or text 1-844-44-MyCal or chat online at michigan.gov/MyCal. A message from the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services.
We want to say thank you for taking time out of your day once again to be with us here on the Megacast. We're here Monday through Friday, 10 a.m. until noon. You can always catch previous episodes of the Megacast on our website, civiccentertv.com. Just click on Megacast, or you can just watch the individual interviews as well by clicking the on-demand page. About 20 minutes left here in the show, and for so many people, cooking has been a therapy for them throughout the pandemic.
Yeah, cooking has been a hobby that a lot of people have picked up over the course of the pandemic, especially early on as we were first in those lockdowns. And for some, it's persisted throughout because it's been something positive for them to turn to and something to keep their mind off of all the different crises that we've had to deal with over the last year and a half or so.
So with that, Tyler, I have to ask you, have you become a better cook?
I think I'm about the same. I'm no better and I'm no worse than I was before. I only cook for myself, really. So, and I'm not trying to impress anybody right now.
So with that, because I am sitting here thinking, I need to stop at the grocery store. What am I going to get for dinner tonight? Yeah. But really, there is culinary art therapy is a real therapy. Julie Ohana joins us now again on the Megacast. Great to have you back with us. How are you?
Guys, thanks for having me back. Good to see you.
Do you feel a little bit more hopeful from the last time we talked to you? Because I believe the last time we were really in the middle of the lockdown and the restrictions, the crazy surges that we've had here in the state of Michigan over the past year. But it looks like we're coming out of the pandemic. Are you more hopeful?
I am more hopeful. I'm cautiously optimistic. We're still working from home, still approaching things very cautiously, still doing a lot of cooking. And I'm very pleased to say that I'm seeing other people really stay on the bandwagon of cooking and realizing how productive and how beneficial cooking can be.
So with that, Julie, if I can ask you, for those that maybe didn't catch our previous interview with you, give us background on your therapy.
Sure. So my background is in social work. I am a clinical licensed social worker, and I've been in the field for almost 20 years now. And over the last 2 decades, my work really has evolved into this practice that I call culinary art therapy, where I combine my clinical skills with my love of cooking and being able to show people that cooking really does have clinical benefits, therapeutic benefits, but also life skills benefits. It's not just something that is a clinical practice, although it can be, but really there are really wide-ranging benefits for everybody to be able to learn from your kitchen and take those skills out into your regular everyday lives.
And are you doing some of your sessions remotely right now, still kind of via Zoom?
Yes, everything is still remote. I think people are, really taking their time getting back into what was normal before. I also think that these Zoom sessions aren't going anywhere. I think people really realize, me included, that working like this, remotely with people, with me being in my own kitchen and them in their own kitchens, they really work. It's amazing, and there's really also added benefit for people to be in their own familiar space, to feel more comfortable, to feel more at ease, to have all their tools and space at their ready. And for me to be able to work with clients, to have them in that comfort zone really does help enable me to help them better.
That's an interesting point of view as well, because they're more comfortable. We all know our kitchens.
Exactly. And it's about the kitchen, but it's also about your comfort in your own emotional space. I think everybody hopefully feels a sense of ease and comfort in their own homes, their own space, versus going to a stranger space that you've never been before or you're not familiar with. You really get to have a starting point that's very different when you're at home.
We're talking with Julie Ohana. She's a therapist and runs the Culinary Art Therapy program. And with that, Julie, I know that you're taking part in a new project that is close to your heart. Can you share more with us?
Yes, would love to. So over the last few weeks and months, most people have heard that there's been a tremendous rise in anti-Semitism, which is very unfortunate. There's been about a 500% increase in anti-Semitic occurrences in this country the last month or so, which is obviously very disheartening. This is something that's near and dear to my heart as the granddaughter of a Holocaust survivor. It's, tremendously upsetting. But I've been really honored and happy to be able to participate in this initiative that's called Bake a Stand. Nobody is under any disillusionments that baking is going to end anti-Semitism. However, when we are all faced with something troubling, it feels great to be able to do something, to bring some positive energy and some, to take action and to bring awareness into the world in a way that feels really authentic and good. So certainly cooking for me, that's my wheelhouse. Mm-hmm. So Whitney Fish, who is a blogger and a Jewish community professional based in Cincinnati, Ohio, she partnered with this incredible organization that's called Holocaust and Humanity Center, also in Cincinnati. And there's about 50 bakers worldwide that are participating in a bake sale of some kind. So yesterday I went live on my Instagram feed And I baked my grandmother's marble cake, which is one of my favorites. And anybody who donates to the Holocaust and Humanity Center from now until June 13th will be entered to win the raffle, where I'm giving away a marble cake. Really, we're just trying to raise awareness. We're trying to raise funds for this really worthwhile organization that helps educate the community on Holocaust education, what it means to be tolerant and a kind human, and really hopefully bring an end to anti-Semitism.
Yeah, it really is disheartening when we are still experiencing so much hatred here in our country, but really across the globe as well, because I think if anything, we've all learned throughout the pandemic, we're all connected, and we should be loving each other more instead of hating more.
Absolutely. And it really is about tolerance, and it's not about needing to always agree with everyone, but it's about realizing that every human deserves respect. And, anti-Semitism, just like any other form of hatred, should not be tolerated.
And, I saw a documentary once where they brought together a Jewish mother and a Palestinian mother, and they just got together as moms because while, they were far apart on the issues of their governments, at the end of the day, they were still moms who still loved their kids, who still cooked together. In fact, I think that was part of the segment, is that they were cooking together and sharing some of their family recipes with one another and the stories behind the recipes, because it's not just the food, it's the story and the feelings behind them.
Absolutely. There are many ways that we're different, but I really do believe there are more ways where we are alike. And to me, that's why cooking can be so special, because that really does help to illuminate those similarities and bring people together. And in this case, hope for the recognition of those similarities in the hopes for peace.
Yeah. And, one thing that we all know is we love to eat. We all love to eat, and food has always been the fabric of so many of our families. It's not just a way to nourish our bodies, but really our souls as well.
Yes, 100%.
So when you cook that marble cake, what memories come back to you?
So great question. And I specifically picked a recipe that was a family recipe that came from my grandparents' home. Like I said, my grandfather was a Holocaust survivor. Also, my grandparents were two of the most special, amazing people, some of my favorite people in my life. And this is a recipe that my grandma made all throughout my childhood, growing up. I've made several times, and I love that when I bake it, I'm baking it from the original recipe card that she used. Oh. And every time I use it, I feel like it makes me connected to her a little bit more. Definitely brings back those memories that I have with my grandparents, and really just helps to elicit feelings of love and compassion. And I'm hoping that those feelings translate into this initiative with this Bake a Stand. I know they do for me, and I really am hopeful that other people will be willing and able to come out and show their support.
I love that you still have her recipe card.
Yes, I have a whole tin of her original recipe cards. That was one of my most special items after she passed away, that I have those cards and certainly protect them very dearly.
That is so sweet. I know that a friend of mine, she had on a cutting board, they had the original recipe from a family member that had passed, and they had it engraved in the cutting board for them. What a special gift, right?
So special. And it's definitely one of the ways, again, food, it's not just about the food and the eating, but it really is about connecting to those memories and those relationships.
So what are some of the food items some of the other bakers are going to be making?
So there are bakers all over the country, all over the world. Adina Sussman, who's one of my favorite celebrity chefs, she's in Israel, and she makes the most incredible food. Jake Cohn in New York, same thing. And I've seen babkas, I've seen cookies, I've seen pies. These recipes are just incredible. And I hope people go on to my Instagram page, Culinary Art Therapy, and I'm linking to some of these other bakers so you can see the amazing products and the links to be able to also donate, even if you're not in one of the cities where there's a bake sale going on, but you can also support the cause by making a donation.
We're talking with Julie Ohana. She's the culinary art therapist, but she is also taking part in the Bake a Stand bake sale that is happening now through June 13th. And I have to ask you, do you and some of the other bakers kind of get together behind the scenes and make each other's recipes and be like, mine's better than yours? No, mine's better than yours.
You know, there in this community, there's been only love. There's been, I definitely have connected with some of these other bakers online, and we've all just really wanted to show appreciation and support for one another for the dishes, the amazing dishes that people are baking, but also the effort. I know there are a number of non-Jewish bakers, and that means the world to so many of us that this isn't just a Jewish cause, but there are non-Jews that want to show support and want to help bring awareness. So it's been an amazing experience and opportunity.
And what's it mean for you to take part in this?
I'm sorry, say that again.
What's it mean to you to be able to take part in this?
It means to me to be able to do something in a positive way. You know, to me, when there's a problem in the world, it's so important for any of us to really find a way to be part of a solution and not just ruminate in the problem and the complaining, but really to take action. And obviously some of these issues they're harder to find that solution. And like I said, baking is not going to end anti-Semitism, unfortunately, but it does bring people together. It does show us that there's goodness in this world, and there are people that care, and there's people that want to stand up with us. And, that means everything to me as somebody, as a Jewish woman, as a Holocaust survivor's granddaughter, and as an activist that wants to bring more good to the world.
We need people such as yourself and so many others that want to do just that. And we should all point out that, we've even seen here throughout, the United States with the past election, we may not agree upon things, but we are still all in this together. And it's okay to disagree, but it's not okay to hate. And it's not okay to share that violence as well. So we have to do it with love, and we have to do it through food as well. So for those that want to find out more, how can they do so?
Follow me on Instagram, Culinary Art Therapy. Also, feel free to go to the website at the Holocaust and Humanity Center.org. And you can read more information about the organization. You can make a donation. You can follow me on Instagram and just hear about the journey.
With that too, Julie, before we say goodbye, how important has Instagram or social media in general been to you throughout this pandemic?
Yeah, it's really crazy, because I think when any of these social media platforms were created, I don't think anybody could have guessed this would really be a lifeline for so many. But they make the world a much smaller place. They make it so much easier to communicate with people. Unfortunately, it makes it easier to also spread hatred, which is certainly a problem. But I would really like to think that the voices of optimism and hope and kindness can be louder than the voices of hatred. So to me, it's important that we use those voices for good and we share positive messages. And that is definitely what I'm trying to do.
Well, we so appreciate your time, and also thank you for taking your time and your talents as well to be a part of this project.
Well, I appreciate you having me and bringing awareness to the subject. So thank you guys so much.
So with that, again, Culinary Art Therapy. You can find her on Instagram. I just liked you, Julie, as well. And I will say the one thing I like about Instagram, Tyler, so much more than Facebook, because I do feel the Instagram community is a little bit more respectful.
Yeah.
Facebook gets so mean. And I like to tell people too, you're on my Facebook page. You're following me.
Right, just leave. Just leave. You don't like, that's the thing about it. So that's what I never get about this on any of these platforms. You don't like it, just stop. You don't like this person, go away. You don't have to tell them. Why are you following them to tell them you hate them? It makes no sense.
It doesn't. That's why my brother, he got off Facebook. He's an artist, and he's very sensitive. And he's like, I can't handle it. And I said, you've got to get on Instagram. People aren't mean. Like, I'll post the exact same thing. And what you see on Facebook versus Instagram, always very interesting. So, but great to have Julie with us here again. Culinary art therapy. We so appreciate her time, and we also appreciate all of your time being with us here on the Megacast. As a reminder, we're always here Monday through Friday, 10 a.m. until noon. Civic Center TV, Birmingham Area Municipal Access, Channel 15 on Comcast, 99 on AT&T. We rebroadcast this show several times throughout the day, so if you can't catch us live, you can always catch the rebroadcast, or also just go to civiccentertv.com. There you'll find us. Just click on the Megacast or on demand for the individual interviews. And with that, that's going to pretty much wrap it up for the Monday edition of the Megacast. Go out, enjoy the sunshine, bake in the heat. Remember this 90-degree weather, because before you know it, we'll have snow once again. This has been the Monday edition of the Megacast. Thanks for being with us.